Hello, fabulous friends, fans, and superstars. Welcome to Synchronicity Web TV. I am your host, Nadiya Shah, and this is your moment of synchronicity. Well, I'm so excited to celebrate with you today, Christeen Skinner. Christeen is a leader in the world of financial astrology. She's written several books. She doesn't like it when I say it because she's British and she's restrained, but you know, she's kind of a big dog. And I'm just so happy to be working with her and happy that she's coming back to Synchronicity University, this time as part of the July 2023 speaker series. And you've got a limited time left to choose your tuition rate, as low as just $5 a class, which really is an unheard of rate to learn from the likes of the one and only, the prolific writer, the leader in the field of astrological financial astrology. We've got Christeen Skinner here. Christeen, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. What a lovely, lovely welcome. I had a thrilling time last time when I did the class, and I made some really nice connections, actually. And the thing was about that class is I was quite nervous at the beginning, and after about 10 or 15 minutes, it was just really relaxing. It was a really lovely place to be. So I'm looking forward to doing this next one.
Oh, I'm so excited that you are back as well. And I know that, I mean, look, anytime somebody gets a chance to learn from you, because I know you've been around the circuit, you've taught at conferences, and I've seen presentations of yours online as well. And so, yes, it's the energy that you bring, but also, yeah, the students at Synchronicity University, they tend to be very loving and very welcoming as well. And I know how much they appreciated your class. And so this time you are back. You are teaching or doing a talk on astro money management, right up your alley because of your inclination and the way that you shine in financial astrology. So tell me about that talk. I'm looking forward to it. I have an eighth house son, so I'm looking forward to it. But yes, tell me about it.
Let me tell you where I've come into with all of this and why my thinking has broadened, I think, since last year. My ascendant is 11 Taurus and I'm a Libra. So obviously I'm Venus ruled from both ends. My moon sits exactly on the eighth house cusp in Sagittarius. So I like talking about it all. And yes, I suppose I pontificate. I think that's a moon in Sagittarius does pontificate at times. Anyway, that's the background to this, but it's not that I'm actually money driven, because I'm really not. If I look at my node, for example, which is in Pisces and it's conjunct Hygeia, I'm very much into wealth and health. And over what's now 35 years or so of working with clients, I see that the thing, when somebody is strapped for cash, they tend to also attract dis-ease because they're not, they're obviously on edge all the time. So what happened last year was that the eclipse where was it? Just May of last year was exact on my ascendant. And I didn't realize it at the time because you never do when an eclipse is exact. It takes some time before you know what it was all about. But we had a crisis at home. And I had to get somebody in to live in to help because my husband requires this 24/7 care. And for the first time ever, I had to deal with proper payrolls and I had to have a very different kind of structure. And that led me into the path of thinking about how my clients, as well as me, how do we work with astro money management? At what point do you feel, yes, actually, I am the chief executive of my own company? So I've started to develop this thing. And what I want to do on our course, our little class actually, is to show how you can be executive of your company and how you can be the best chief financial officer of your company. So I'm going to look at things like, when's the optimum time to invest? When should you take out a loan? When should you not take out a loan? And what does your birth chart say about how you manage money? And how do you sabotage yourself? Because we all do it. It's not just a question of going, you walk past a shop and think, I really like that dress, I have to have it today. How do you actually cope with your general money management? So that's what I want to do in that hour, is to give you some of what I think are the stepping stones. And can I stress this? It's what I think. This is not a statistical analysis. This is just based on my experience. What are the stepping stones to take you from where you are now to a point where you feel, actually, I would employ me. I'm a really good financial manager. It's more than just astrology, obviously, but we'll look at a bit of behavior patterns. How do you stop yourself from buying the handbag, right? How do you save up for the handbag? All of those things. How does that sound?
Always a very worthy contemplation and consideration. Handbag. I know I share sometimes that the first 7 years as a full-time astrologer. So I've been a full-time astrologer for 17 years, almost a few months away now. And I teach only one business class a year, which is with Kepler College every summer. And it's like for oriented towards spiritual entrepreneurs and social media, things like that. But the first 7 years of my entrepreneur work, I lived below the poverty line in Canada for the first 7 years. And I remember over 2 years ago when I left a 7-year relationship, and I had this moment when I knew that I hadn't once thought about money. I hadn't once had to think about, am I going to be okay financially? I knew without even having to consider it, I knew I'd be okay, that my mortgage for my parents' house would be taken care of. And I really felt like those sacrifices were worth it, that the sacrifices I made. And so as I'm listening to you talk, I'm thinking, you know, I think back and I think, wow, how did I do that? How did I manage 7 years below the poverty line? But the other thing is, I would have loved to have had the wisdom and the knowledge so that I didn't have to go through that. And I love that you're thinking of how people are a CEO. Like, really, you are somebody who's learning about money, yes, but you're learning about managing money as well.
Yeah.
And how, hopefully, as a result of getting this wisdom, this information, this knowledge, these skills, maybe that next person won't have to live below the poverty line for 7 years to get to that place where they're able
Yeah.
to
Well,
feel that sense of freedom.
I mean, everybody's chart is different. Um,
Hmm.
we've just gone through what I consider to be really quite a distressing time, in that we had an employee whom I was extremely fond of, who came to us in something of a financial mess. We were putting her back on her feet. She was doing really very well, but she'd fallen in love. And, that's another dimension to things. And
Yeah.
she left us and moved on to something else, and it's a real crash and burn. Sadly, it's not worked out at all, and all the gains that we've made over 9 months have now gone. She's back now to, in fact, in a worse financial condition than she was at the beginning. Now, the interesting thing about that is that she was experiencing a major transit of Uranus going over her Saturn. So we knew that she would want to experience freedom, and that I thought that we'd explored all the ways in which she could sabotage herself. But you can't always protect everybody entirely. But I think that there's quite a lot that I can share with other people about the stories, the things that I've learned along the way, and how we each make really, they are really key choices. She went off with this guy. We've all done that, right? But they went into a business partnership without any paperwork, right? No contractual obligation, no nothing. And of course, it's completely Uranus, isn't it? I'll worry about it tomorrow. And it's chaotic, and now it's collapsed. So I will be looking at that. And please, if you're listening and you know that Uranus is about to go over your Saturn, don't assume that you're going to behave the same way, because every chart is different. Every single one is different. But what we will be looking at in this thing are, what are the key things to look out for? When every one of us goes through a time when we experience a transit, which I call the gambler's curse. Every single person goes through it. We can work out when that's going to happen for you. It happens for entire generations. For every generation will have a year when they experience, oh, to hell with it, I'll invest in X, or I'll buy this, right? So, but seeing that coming and learning from the past, we can improve your financial welfare, I think. And when we do that, well, it's not, as I said, it's not about building up wealth as such. It's about allowing you to be the best you can be, so that you can then explore other areas of your life.
That's when astrology is at its best, when it is about allowing you to be who you can be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I had that lesson early on as well of getting into a business agreement without a contract. And what I learned is I will never, ever, ever do that ever again.
Yes.
That's what I learned from that situation. Yeah.
It's really tricky. I mean, I'm experiencing this with another organization at the moment that are going back over their rules and regulations, their points of order at the moment, and thinking some of these are completely outdated. And yes, they are. Something that's been going for 30, 40 years, they will need to go back through the small print at some point. But very often what was there at the beginning was there for a very good reason, right? And it's there as a protection, it's a safety net. And sometimes you need to create a contract with yourself. It's not about making it with somebody else, but what's the contract with you? And if you say, my book budget is $50 a month, and then you spend 65, right? How are you going to pay that 15 back? Are you going to take it from next month? How are you going to deal with it? Are you going to pay it back with interest, for example? So having a conversation with yourself is important too.
And the promises you make to yourself probably are important as well.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I'm totally with you in that. This is on a slightly different note, but I have a colleague at the moment whose husband's gone through, had a stroke. Now, we went through exactly that with 30 odd years ago, and she's been told that it'll be some months before her husband is back to operating normally. Now, in our case, Michael's stroke was really quite a serious one, but it never occurred to him that he wasn't going to go back and be playing at the Royal Opera House, which he'd been doing before. And he was back there within 8 weeks. And I think that was entirely, that's absolutely down to his Sagittarian sun. Yes, absolutely. Yes. But it never crossed his mind that he wouldn't be. So having a vision is absolutely, that's critical. When doctors were saying, I don't think you'll be able to do this, he was looking at them like, why would you even have that conversation? Of course I'll be able to do it. So when you say it never occurred to you that you wouldn't be able to fulfill, I think you said the mortgage for your parents, it never occurred to you that you wouldn't do it, then that's a wonderful, wonderful thing to think. That's okay. It's going to be fine, right? And that's not about living in Pollyanna land. The key to what you said, of course, was that you said, there was a 7-year period. Well, obviously, we're talking about a Saturn quarter, right? So we know, I don't have to know your chart to know, and you heard it, but I think you're Aquarius, right?
Yes.
You're Aquarius, so you hear Saturn. Not everybody would hear it in the same way, right? So, but you had a confidence. Okay, I'm going to do that. That's going to be the hard bit. I've done the rocky road. Now I'm on the smooth one. I'm driving. I'm in 5th gear.
I am going to ask you a completely selfish question. And if you don't want to answer it because it's simplistic or not complicated enough or whatever, it's okay. I can edit it out. But I have to tell you, Aquarius is my 8th house. And Pluto right now is at the very beginning, right at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And
Yeah.
I know I have the great privilege of talking to the most incredible astrologers in the world. I have my own, decades of experience in astrology. I know what I would advise somebody when I look at that, like, okay, these are all the ways you want to approach this with a higher consciousness. But I have to be very honest between you and me, I'm a little freaked out. And I'm
Well,
trying not to freak out. So, what would you tell somebody who sees Pluto entering the 8th house? How do
okay.
I? Okay, go.
Well, I'm in a lovely position with this because I've gone through it, right? And not everybody will experience it. Depends where it was when you were born, whether or not you're ever going to have Pluto go through your 8th house. So what happened for me, my 8th house begins just with my moon, 12 degrees of Sagittarius. So not only was it going into the 8th, it was also crossing the moon. Nothing appeared to happen. Nothing. Zero. Right? And 10 years went by before I discovered what that was about. Now, what I had done, and almost exactly to the day, which is actually quite funny when you think about it afterwards, is I'm going back into the 1990s, when all of this was happening. And I was explaining, my husband was a professional musician, so he was playing at the theatre at night. I was alone in the evenings, and I, bored, waiting for him to come home. I bought a whole handful of internet names. Now, this was in the days nobody knew what the internet was. I mean, I'm talking middle 90s. Yes, it was out there, but we weren't thinking about internet real estate then. And I bought something then, forgot it. It was virtually down the back of the sofa, right? But at the point where I realized that we owned it, I sold it and was able to pay off the mortgage. Like, it was incredible. So I would say, I mean, obviously that's a lot of that is to do with my chart as well. But very often you make an investment, and I've seen this with other clients, as Pluto goes into the eighth, and you don't even know you made it. Right? The chances of you knowing you made it are nothing. It's Pluto. It's right down in the underworld. You don't know what you've done. And it's much, much later, almost as when Pluto's leaving, that you realize the value of what you've done. Now, throughout that time, throughout the whole of that period, I didn't realize that I was also investing in me, which is what you're going to be doing now. Because in the same way that you're very kind to me and you're saying, I've become the big dog, that's what you're doing. You are developing, you're going to be the big dog. So by the time Pluto leaves and gets into the ninth house, you'll be on a different trajectory entirely. Right? So this, I think, it is all about, you're investing in you, right? But you're also discovering what you can trust and what you can't. And I would say with Aquarius, of course, we are talking new age. Yeah, of course we are. And you're going to be, as you are with this, you're still light years ahead of some people who aren't using this kind of medium at all, even now. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an exciting time for you. You're probably going to have to learn about legacy and inheritance and think about the footprint that you want to leave as well. So there will probably be stuff to do with charities that you're not even thinking about now, but will happen. You have to keep a transit diary. You have to keep a note of when you did things.
I will save that piece of this recording and listen to it. And thank you for that very generous interpretation there. Okay, so let's take the focus off of me.
All
I
right.
am sure, because I know we don't have a lot of time left. I hope it doesn't take too long, but I'd love to leave people with something that they can use as well, just like I can take what you just shared and use it for me. How about this? Everybody at some point, not everybody, but a lot of people at some point probably are going to want to get a mortgage, to invest in property, to invest in a house, right? It is sort of universally thought of as our most important investment, or the really big investment we make in our life. What should people look for when deciding when to get a mortgage?
Well, there's a few things that we will look at this properly, right? There is a property cycle, right? It's very similar to the nodal cycle, this 18.6 years, but it doesn't break down into quarters and things the way that other cycles do it. It's got quite a different rhythm. Right? We can be fairly sure that there's going to be a reset, unless mankind breaks the habits of the last few hundred years, right? We will have a recession about 2027. So you need to be aware of that. If you're taking on a long-term mortgage, you need to know that that period is going to be very expensive. You also need to know when are interest rates likely to rise. We'll cover that as well. Right? Should you be buying something when Saturn is about to go into your eighth house? No, right? No, because what you think you can afford and the reality will be very different, right? So we'll look at some of the times and because there are better times than others to be investing. A very nice one, in fact, is if Saturn is going over your IC, because yes, it might mean that you buy some derelict property and it's going to take you 30 years before it's absolutely fabulous, but it will also be one of the best investments of your lifetime. We also have to think some people move from property to property to property. They don't nest in the same way that other people do. So we'll also have a look at that too.
It sounds so exciting. I feel like there's so much to learn from you. And thank you. Let me just say once again, you guys, of course, Christeen, you will get a chance to learn from her once again. at Synchronicity University as part of the July 2023 speaker series. You've got a limited time to choose your tuition rate as low as just $5 a class, and you are going to be jam-packed with so much insight and skills and interpretations that really you'll come away understanding your own wealth that much more differently over the span of just 90 minutes with a talk with the one and only big dog, Christeen Skinner. Christeen, what a privilege to work with you. Like, this is what, you were talking earlier about money, how you weren't really motivated by that. I too have a Sag moon as well. And so, yeah, I wasn't really motivated by that, but it did really inspire me to want to talk to these people whose books I'd been reading for years, whose careers had inspired me. And so getting this moment with you, it just awakens that playful part of me inside where I remember who I was 20 years ago, wanting to have moments like this with someone who'd inspired me. So just thank you. I feel just really happy right now that I got a chance to talk to you. Thank
Well,
you.
I'm excited, and July is only just around the corner, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes, that's so
We will
true.
have we will really have a fun session, and then we'll see what that leads to.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. And thank you again, Christeen. And thank you, everybody out there, for watching. So grateful for you as well. And until we connect again, take care. Bye.